Hello and welcome. This is the first video in a series of videos that I will be doing going over the different weapon combinations in New World. In this video we're going to be going over the sword and shield combined with the great axe. To me, this is probably the most versatile melee setup in terms of PvP and in terms of questing. If you're looking at having the absolute most DPS for expeditions, this is probably not your spec. But we'll dive right in. The first ability that I have used here for the sword and shield is Whirling Blade. I think that's going to be pretty much universally used for all sword and shield DPS. It is an AoE attack, it does 145% weapon damage, and honestly, it's an extremely fast animation. I think it's pretty stellar overall. Jumping over here to the Defender tier branch is Shield Bash. It does 50% weapon damage and stuns anyone in front of you for 2 seconds. And once you get enough skill points, you can spec into Concussive Bash, which grants you an extra second on your Shield Bash. So you'll have a 3-second stun, which will allow you to set up your burst of Reverse Stab, which is 175% weapon damage. It is a very, very long animation though, so it's extremely important if you're going to land this in PvP. If you are going to land this on another character, you are going to have to use your Shield Bash first. Get behind them, hit them with the Reverse Stab. Specking into it, the Tactician, this is going to reduce your cooldowns by 25%. That is huge. So far, the sword and shield, the main flack that it has caught in the New World community has been that it has very long cooldowns. And although, yes, it does have very long cooldowns, if you're able to hit them with the Reverse Stab and you are spec'd into Tactician, honestly, the cooldowns are reasonably short. Hopping over to the Great Axe. This, to me, is such a pressure build. You can keep the pressure on any ranged character probably better than any melee DPS class right now, or any melee DPS weapon right now in the game. I have spec'd into Charge, and eventually I will spec all the way down. It just grants you an extra 40-45% weapon damage. But Charge is nice because it's a 10-meter charge, which is really far. I mean, and I use it to cross creeks and everything with when I'm questing, but it's extremely important if you're fighting a ranged character to be able to stay on them and don't let them kite you away. Keeping the pressure up, I've spec'd into Reap. This pulls your foes 5 meters towards you and deals 110% weapon damage, and if you spec into it on the Collector, it increases that range to 8 meters, which I think is extremely important. Actually, going all the way down the Reaper side, it's just fantastic. You can heal yourself for 30% of damage done by your Reap, and it does decent damage, so you're going to get a decent heal. And then, and this is probably the best part, after you've already hit them with the 110% weapon damage and pulled them closer to you, now you do a spinning attack that does an additional 115% weapon damage, making this an extremely important move to use. And then last but not least, Execute. This is a massive attack that does 200% weapon damage or 300% if your opponent is under 50% health. This, just to put it into perspective, right now at level 36, I have 4,000 health. When I crit on this, I typically am hitting for between 26 to 2,800. So almost 2/3 of my health bar it hits for. It is a massive attack with a massive windup. It is extremely easy to just move out of the way of this. And to be honest, the only plausible way that I'm finding that I can hit people with this in PvP is if I first set it up with a Shield Bash, quickly swap my weapon, and then hit them with the Execute. I typically wait until they're below 30% health. If they're at 30% of health, it crits them 100% of the time, effectively ending the duel. You will absolutely eliminate your opponent if you get a Execute off while they're at or below 30% health. You will finish them. To me, this spec is really important because, I would say, the way that I have spec'd into this is really important because we have 3 crowd control abilities and 3 damage abilities. It's really, really versatile. I like setting my damages up simply by either using the Whirling Blade, Shield Bash, and then Reverse Stab, or Whirling Blade, Shield Bash, followed by Execute, depending on where they're at in their health. And here's a duel I did against a guy who was level 34. I'm 35. I've slowed the animations down just a bit so you can see what's going on. He got an early stun on me, but I go Shield Bash, Whirling Blade, Reverse Stab, and then switch over to my Great Axe. He did get a nice stun on me right there, but I pull him close to me with Reap, get a charge to eliminate that separation, and then hit him with the Execute. At this point, I know I need to reset and just let my cooldowns come back up. So I'm just trying to play a little bit defensively here, which is where some of that versatility comes in with the sword and shield. But right here, I'm going to finish him off by going Shield Bash, Whirling Blade, Reverse Stab, game over. Here's another duel, and I didn't slow this one down because the camera angles are absolutely horrible. He had backed me up into a corner. I wanted to play a little defensive. I know that the big Warhammer, it's very easy to dodge that. And so that's what I was trying to do, and instead I got backed into a corner. But I decided to keep the clip and go ahead and throw it on here just to show you the power of Execute when you have an opponent below 30%. Right here, he's just pounding on me. The Warhammer does a massive amount of damage. I can't get out. I'm stuck in this corner. I can't get up this rock. Finally, I find a way to get away for just a second. I hit him with a Shield Bash, really defensively, to just get him away. And then I take a quick potion, and I try to run away until my cooldowns are reset. I come back with the Great Axe, pull him to me, hit him with the Execute, and we somehow found a way to win that. Popping over to the PvE side of things, in particular expeditions. Again, I don't think this is the best combination if you're looking to do a massive amount of burst damage. Your Great Axe will do a terrific burst damage, especially if you have a boss that's below 30% health or even 50% health. But your sword and shield, especially with the way that I've spec'd into it with the Shield Bash, I just don't think that it's very viable in terms of getting the most DPS out of yourself. But if you're like me and you just love the sheer versatility of this spec, then you're still going to find yourselves in expeditions, and you're just going to have to try to maintain as much DPS as you possibly can. Make sure that you do spec into Empower. It grants you 30% damage for 5 seconds after you use a heavy attack. So if you saw the big hit there, 2200, that's because I used Empower followed by the Great Axe Execute. On the questing side of things, I think this is an absolutely terrific weapon combination and spec. The sword and shield allows you enough defense to tank mobs of 2, 3, even 4 NPCs. And then the Great Axe allows you enough DPS, especially burst DPS, to just mow through anything. Overall, I would say if I have to rate it 1 to 10 on the questing side of things, I'm going to go with an 8.0. The only thing I think could make it a bit higher would be to add some sort of self-healing. I know Reap gives you the 30% of your damage. I just don't think it's enough to really make it worth it. On the flip side, if you have some potions, then you can just self-heal like that, and this would probably go up to about a 9.5 for questing. But for now, I'm going to go with an 8.0. I'm confident in that. I'm going to stick to that. on the expeditions. I think this is a pretty bad weapon combination for expeditions. I think the Great Axe is great for the burst DPS, but if you have a healer, I mean, probably don't need the sword and shield, right? I would probably go with something else that's also burst, maybe a Warhammer or something like that. But yeah, probably a 5.5 for expeditions. On the PvP side of things, I think it's probably about as good as a melee class that you can build. I'm going with a 9.2. I think that it allows you a tremendous amount of pressure against ranged weapons. Any kind of bow, musket, ice gauntlet, fire staff, anything like that is going to be at a massive disadvantage to you because the sheer pressure that you can put on them with your charge, your pull, and your stun. And once you have them in the stun, you have terrific burst DPS with your execute or with your backstab. I think that this is probably going to be my favorite melee combination here in the game, the sword and shield and the great axe. It is extremely versatile, and even against other melee characters, it works terrific because you have so much damage with the great axe and then so much defense with the sword and shield. 9.2 is going to be my PvP rating. Overall, the sword and shield and great axe combination with this particular player build has been just a really fun experience for me. I am excited to try out some other weapon combinations and player builds and just see really what sticks, what's going to be viable for PvP, what's going to be viable for PvE, and just really learn this game from front to back. It's such a new game with so many different possibilities and so many different weapon combinations. It just allows for so much freedom, which I think is a really nice, refreshing characteristic in an MMO. And I don't think we've really seen anything like that before. If you guys have any suggestions for weapon combinations you'd really like to see me try, I would love to hear it. Please leave a comment of whatever that weapon combination or player build is, and I will absolutely run with it and make a video on it. I'm going to try to release at least one new video per week, and it would mean a lot if you would like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks, guys.